So yay, I am so excited to introduce this beautiful and extraordinary woman, Ruth Elliott-Booth. Um, so she has been immersed in the field of personal development for over 15 years. And I think what's really special is she brings this deep understanding of neurodivergent and neurodivergence and just experience of life for those who are disabled or impacted by things that bring unique challenges to everyday life. She's a creative writer. She's an amazing writer, you all. She's a journaling enthusiast, as many of you know. And she's here on this planet to channel her healing journey and her life experiences to empower others to live authentically while honoring their unique challenges. And I will just add that, when Ruth stepped into our programs back in 2023, it's been a couple of years almost. She stepped into these programs for her personal healing and her open-hearted expansion. And little did we know at that time that 2 years later, she would be walking away from these programs, graduating as a level 2 certified teacher and stepping into level 3 certification to become a coach. And now holding space for others on their healing and empowerment and expansion journeys. And so this is the first of many spaces I have no doubt she will be holding for beautiful souls moving forward. And it is such an honor to have her here and have you all here. And what she's bringing for all of us is really profound. It's really valuable information and knowledge. And I trust that we will all walk away with something, a new spark within our hearts, a new opening within our minds that bring us all to be able to see some new possibilities for our lives and for the world. So with that, I'm going to hand the mic over to Ruth and let her, I think she's got co-host, and let her bring her slides up. And we wish everyone a wonderful journey. Enjoy the presentation. And it's so nice to meet everyone.
Hey everyone, it's really good to see some friendly faces and a couple of people that I don't know. And firstly, I just want to say thank you for being here. It's been a journey to get to this point, and yeah, I'm really excited to share this class with you and yeah, see what it ignites in everybody. So first there's going to be a little bit of a presentation, and then I'm going to move into a physical exercise class with NeuroSomatic flow. So this presentation is based on the paper I wrote, the Sacred Scholarship paper, which was part of my level 2 certification, and it's entitled Autism and the Flow State, a Path to Freedom and Self-Worth with NeuroSomatic Flow. And so a little bit of background, a lot of you here already know this, but I was diagnosed as autistic at 34, so a couple of years ago now. And women often receive a late diagnosis, and this is for a variety of reasons. But most notably, it's because research and diagnostic criteria are based on how autism shows up in males. And for women, it often shows up in different ways. And that means that for a lot of us, we enter adulthood not having this piece of the puzzle. And because of this, it often has physical and mental health implications. And this can be really severely, impacting our everyday life. And the reason why I wanted to explore this in my paper and in this presentation is because I've experienced my own physical and mental health issues because of this piece of the puzzle that I didn't have. I mean, most notably, I'm quite convinced that my depression and anxiety is rooted in this piece of information that I didn't have about myself. So a really light touch is that neurosomatic flow is different from a normal flow class in the sense that there's three concepts that we include, which is neuroplasticity, the idea that the brain can be rewired, somatics, which is intentionally being in the body, and ontology, which is the study of the way of being. And a couple of these concepts we'll explore in more detail, both in my presentation and in the class later. And I'll also be talking about neurosomatic flow technique, which is something that we use to help people to rewire thought patterns and ways of being. So a couple of statistics. So 59% of autistic people are impacted by anxiety. And in this population, it can cause exhaustion, meltdowns, autistic fatigue, and burnout. And 25% of the general population have mental health problems. But in the autistic population, this increases to 80%, which is quite a severe difference and something that is so often neglected in our society, and the support that is offered by our GP, by the government, and by society as a whole. And another statistic that I found really interesting is the prevalence of PTSD. So in neurodiverse people, this is 35%, and in neurotypical, it's only 4.5%. Now, I think there are various reasons why PTSD is more prevalent in the autistic population, but one reason may be that it relates to the heightened sensory processing and the way that a lot of us experience things in a much more extreme and overwhelming way. And therefore, these experiences that might be quite normal for neurotypical people and dealt with quite quickly can often result in quite severe and traumatic responses for us, which can then result in PTSD. So stress has a high impact on mental health, and I think a lot of us know this from our own experience. But the stress regulation system develops in infancy. And there's a suggestion that a lack of love and nurture can cause this system to not develop properly. And that results in it taking longer to turn off the production of cortisol, which means higher stress for longer periods of time. Now, for a lot of autistic people, we can struggle with eye contact. And for some of us, it can be physically painful. But eye contact is really important in connection and building a sense of safety between infant and caregiver, particularly in those early few months of life. And we learn how safe we are in the world from our early experiences. And I do wonder whether this is a reason why autistic people deal with heightened levels of stress for longer periods of time, because that eye contact between us and our caregiver is so difficult, and therefore the connection and the safety just isn't nurtured in the same way. So stress impacts the body in various ways. It pushes the nervous system into a sympathetic state. So you might know it as fight, flight, freeze, or fawn. But it also causes the blood pressure and heart rate to rise. And over long periods of time, this can decrease the immune system, meaning that we're more able to catch things and it takes longer for us to fight things off. So as you can imagine, this heightened and prolonged stress has a huge impact on our bodies, our health, and our mental well-being. Now, stress, trauma, and anxiety can have a huge effect on self-worth. And this is the case for everybody, that external events are internalized as negative self-talk. Now, for autistic people, we often feel like we don't fit in with society. And as a result, we internalize feelings of being broken, bad, and unworthy. And this impacts our self-care and the ability to ask for help from other people. Now, there is something that I believe can help this, and that's neurosomatic flow techniques. So these encourage the breaking of old patterns of thought and therefore make space to form new patterns that contain healthier stories and ways of being. It also helps to restore balance within the nervous system, bringing it back into that parasympathetic state. And it then encourages safety within the body and mind. Now, for myself, Ginger kind of talked a little bit about it at the beginning, but I came to neurosomatic flow feeling very, very stuck in who I was and where I was going. I didn't really have a very big understanding of what was going on, but it felt like I would always be exactly where I was. And my world was very small, and I didn't really believe that I could get out of the place that I was. But this journey with neurosomatic flow and using neurosomatic flow techniques has allowed me to both imagine and embody new possibilities. And like, if you'd have asked me a year and a half ago whether I would be sat here doing a presentation and teaching a class, I probably would have laughed in your face. So this has really made things possible that I just didn't ever imagine were possible. So neurosomatic flow techniques is a 5-step process. So firstly, we identify a fear or limiting belief. So for some autistic people, this is something like, I am damaged goods and unworthy of being loved by anyone. We then rewrite this limiting belief to become a positive affirmation statement. So I am not damaged and I am worthy of being loved. We then make this statement into a mantra. So rather than saying I am not damaged, which still focuses on the damaged part of that limiting belief, we would say something like, I am whole and worthy of love. In this way, we simplify our statement, turning it into a declaration that can be easily remembered and spoken out loud. And step 4 is we bring in a flow pattern to practice alongside our mantra. And we learn this pattern in the body. And as we're learning a new pattern, we also learn a new thought pattern at the same time in the form of our mantra. So there are various different patterns that we can use. And in my class, we'll be exploring taking up space. So we're going to use patterns that take up space in the body. And the last step is that we embody this pattern and our mantra until it feels really comfortable and there's confidence in speaking it. So for my experience, my first NSFT, it felt really, really stupid to be saying something that I didn't feel or believe out loud. But by the end of it, I noticed that I was speaking my mantra more clearly. And I felt that it was really anchored within me in a way that it hadn't been before. So my paper explored the flow state and how this relates to autism and autistic people's experiences. And I discovered something called monotropism. So there's two definitions here regarding the flow state and monotropism. And I'm not going to read them out, but I'll give you a little bit of time to read them yourself. But as you can see, they are very, very similar. And it's really interesting that this thing that is quite often found in autistic people is so closely linked to something that people strive their whole lives to understand how to get into and how to master, if you will. Now, monotropism, you may know more commonly as hyperfocus behavior. So for me, an example of monotropic behavior is how I get sucked into writing really easily, and I can forget all sense of time, and everything else just falls away from me. And I don't realize what's happening around me. And I also don't realize that I haven't had a drink for ages, or that I'm desperate for a wee, and I'm just really immersed in the activity that I'm doing. And that's a good example of monotropism. So there's an idea that there are four stages of flow, and we need to enter each stage in order to get to the next stage. However, I think that monotropism can mean that for autistic people, we don't necessarily need to go through the struggle to eventually get into the flow state. And I wonder if this flow state allows us to shut out large amounts of sensory input. After writing my paper, I do wonder if monotropic behavior is the brain's way of building a coping mechanism in people that experience high levels of sensory input, as a way of managing and trying to keep balance within the nervous system and brain. And we see it in other ways where the brain tries to balance out things that are maybe not working properly. So using poi is a good way of entering into the flow state, and it's something that we use quite a lot in doing our NSFTs. So a really quick history of poi. It originated with the Maori and was used as a way of telling stories of creation and spirituality, but also a way for warriors to train in strength and dexterity. In its simplest translation, it means ball on a cord. And usually you use one in each hand. So this contralateral movement of doing a different movement with each side encourages a deeper connection between the two hemispheres of the brain. And this in turn creates more possibility for breaking those old patterns and building new ones. But it also takes focus away from our thoughts and into the body. So for anxiety in particular, it's all about racing thoughts, and we can quite often get stuck in our heads. But a movement-based flow, like with poi, we're bringing ourselves back into the body and being intentional with it. And this is the somatics part of neurosomatic flow. And I think this could be particularly important with autistic people who spend a lot of time in stationary activities when they're in a hyper-focus behavior. And I think it can be really important to encourage us to move about more, as well as being more active. So I'm really fascinated by how natural predisposition for flow to help heal and empower autistic people. And it has the potential to support them in exploring the limiting beliefs that keep them small, which in turn encourages them to live out their true potential. I think about what individuals could achieve when they're not spending so much time trying to fit into society. And working with people's natural way of being to encourage greater internal safety will result in an increase of self-worth. And ultimately, no matter what's happened in our childhood and early life, the goal is to be able to find trust and home within ourselves so that we can feel safe to take risks and step out of our comfort zone. Using neurosomatic flow and neurosomatic flow techniques in the autistic population opens up infinite possibilities on a individual and collective level, and that excites me so much, and I'm just loving exploring this and seeing where it leads. So with that in mind, I want to thank you for listening to my presentation, and if you've got any